Hello everyone, today is 29th of August. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. But before that, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So today, we will take a quote from the George Westerman who has written extensively onto the benefits of technology for the humanity and how digital economy can transform the lives of the people. He says, when digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But when done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. Now friends, technology or the digital technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used for benefits as well as for the harms. Now, at the different levels, you can see that particular thing. For example, when in government's hand, government can use it for the evidence-based decision making, can use it for giving the e-governance to the citizens, but at the same time, many a times for the snooping, for invasion into the privacy also the technologies have been used. At the individual level, the technology has been harnessed for the learning, for the education, but at the same time, it has also been used for committing the cyber crimes, the phishing, such kind of things are very much prevalent onto the society. The technology is bringing a positive change. It is giving the constructive messages, but at the same time, fake news and all these kind of things are also very much rampant. So we can see that this digital transformation, if we need to take advantage, we need to divert it into a more constructive and meaningful way. Friends, in GS paper number 3, the technology and innovation as a topic has been there. You can utilize this particular thing in GS3 as well as onto the topics of essay. Now guys, before after moving from the GS folder, one important thing, every day whatever notes we are taking here into our video, I am posting those notes into our Telegram channel as well as into the text form also. I am posting all the news. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our Telegram channel as well for the PDF notes. So that's it, and now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now first let's have an overview of the entire newspaper first. Now here we can see that it has been said by the Supreme Court that if the state governments want, they can apply to UGC for the extension of the exam deadlines into the aftermath of the present crisis that is going on. Under the Disaster Management Act of 2005, it has been said that they can seek such kind of exemptions. However, at their own, they can't cancel the exam. So guys, just that kind of thing. So just a brief update. Now here we can see that the policy with respect to the China has been mentioned onto the foreign relations. So guys, very good attachment for our GS paper number 2. Then guys, this particular article pertains to the new rules of governance that has been announced for the J&K. So with respect to the GS2, we'll see the issues which are involved. Then guys, moving forward, the regional news not important for our exam. Now, going forward, we'll reach to the editorial page. So here, this particular article talks about that why rather than the 10-year census, there needs to be the regular collection of the data. Now, this particular article talks about the US elections as they are going on. So guys, it is a politically inclined article not relevant for our exam. Then this particular article talks about the security situation that is going into the West Asia into the aftermath of Israel's strike onto the Hezbollah. So guys, in that particular respect, entire triangle will be seeing this thing. Now guys, this particular article talks about the GST issue that already we had discussed yesterday. So guys, there from very scratch I had told you that how center is breaching the fiscal federalism by denying the GST compensation receipt. So guys, already very excellently we had discussed this. Then today is Saturday and this particular is the ground zero report from the Kerala where the landslide has occurred. However guys, earlier we had seen this thing. Moreover, the ground zero reports is more about the accounts of the people who are living there. Then guys, moving forward, here one liner concept has been mentioned, that is opportunity cost. So guys, you see, we have seen that there are huge demands going on with respect to the cancellation of exam. So here the education minister has referred the opportunity cost. It has been said that when the exams will be cancelled, the students they will be losing a complete 1 year, and that 1 year will be costing them a huge opportunity cost of nearly 48,000 crore rupees, because you will be losing 1 year of salary which you might have earned in case you had given the exam, and such kind of associated costs are there. However, apart from this, nothing more relevant into this article. Then guys, here we can see that the same GST issues is going on, where the center had said that they can't give the compensation to GST compensation to the states because this is the pandemic and it is the God's call, nothing can be done. Then moving forward, here we can see that the UN Secretary General has made certain remarks on India's energy regime. So in that respect, we'll see this thing. Then the showcase page, not important for our exam. Here, the Japan's Prime Minister has quit the Prime Ministership. So guys, in this particular respect, this article contains some valuable expressions which can be utilized into the GS paper number 2. Then moving forward, the business page, much of the corporate news has been mentioned, not important for our exam. And then on the last page here, the barn owls have been mentioned. So as a biological agents, we'll be seeing this thing and we'll see how we can utilize it. So that's it. And now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now, taking up the first news. So, this particular news pertains to the new rules for the Jammu and Kashmir that has been released by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, friends, we all know that the status of Jammu and Kashmir has been changed and the autonomy given by Article number 370 has been scrapped. So, as the status has been changed, the J&K has been converted into two union territories. For their governance, rules were needed and they have been released now. Now guys, before going into this particular news, if you want, I will give you some background. So you might be knowing all these kind of things. Just take it just as a revision. The entire story started in 2019 when the special status under Article 370 was scrapped. How President passed the Constitution application to Jammu and Kashmir Order 2019. This particular order superseded earlier order of 1954. And by this particular thing, what happened? The entire constitution of India was made applicable to Jammu and Kashmir, and as an indirect consequence, the Article 370 stood nullified into context of Jammu and Kashmir. Not only this particular thing was done, rather one separate legislation or separate act was also passed, that is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019. This particular act changed the status of Jammu and Kashmir as a state, made two union territories, one Ladakh which was without legislature, other Jammu and Kashmir which would be having a legislature. Now guys, this particular thing was very clear from the start that when it will be converted into the UT and when the legislature will also be given to Jammu and Kashmir, it will be having certain limitations. For example, Delhi is a union territory with legislature, there are certain restrictions. So they are also with respect to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, first of all, some more things. See, the rules for the elections were to be notified because new elections will be held in now. No, the elections will be held after the delimitation exercise will be completed. Now, as we are talking about delimitation, first of all, who commits in which particular legislation delimitations provisions have been made? So they have been made under the RPA 1950, not 51. Please keep in mind because in GS2 RPA has been mentioned. Now guys, if we are talking about RPA, how this RPA has been made? So in this particular context, please remember the article number 327. So by the virtue of article 327, the power has been given to the parliament that wherever the laws with respect to the election will be needed, the parliament can make it. Moreover, friends, under Article 328, specific power to the states have also been given with respect to the electoral laws, but state can make law only at that place where the parliament has not made a law and subject to the constitution. So one important concept for prelims we are taking from here, that is electoral laws can be made by both, but states only where their parliamentary laws are not there, written under Article 328. Now guys, moving forward. So coming back to our topic. Now as new legislature was made, so rules with respect to the governance were also have to be made. Now Ministry of Home Affairs had said that see, there will be a lieutenant governor as it happens in all the UTs, then below it there will be a chief minister and council of minister. Now it has been said that certain subjects will be only with the LG, that is the police, public order, all India services and anti-corruption related provisions. Only LG will be having the power in this particular regard. Then it has been said that there are certain proposals, for example, proposal for peace, tranquility, interest of minority, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and backward classes. On to these particular things, the chief minister, council of minister, legislature can take the steps, but the proposals before passing needs to be considerably essentially to be submitted to the LG. and LG's advice in this particular matter has to be taken. Now guys, moreover, one more thing has been said. It has been said that if in case there is no agreement on some of the matter no between the LG and the chief minister or council of minister for a month, then it will be assumed that whatever LG's opinion was, that opinion has been accepted by the council of minister as well as the legislature. Now guys, by this particular provision we can see that the powers of the legislature has considerably be reduced and a kind of a virtual say has been given to the LG onto these particular matters. And in this particular respect, if I give you some one extra point, then guys, in 2016 Supreme Court held into the Nebam Rabia judgment that the role of governor is not more superior than the chief minister. Governor should hold his or her discretion only into the matters where it is assumed that governor morally is entitled to do. Governor should not interfere too much extensively, and here we can see that a virtual power is being given to the LG. Moreover guys, in 2018 Union Territory of Delhi case, the Supreme Court has given a very clear judgment that the LG should never try to venture into the territories of the Chief Minister and COM because they have their own constitutional role to be played. This particular judgment was given when the matters of the tussle between the LG of Delhi and the CM was going on. But guys, we had seen that again a kind of usurpation has been given to the LG. However, as time will come, we will see that how this particular thing will unfold, but it could be an irritant into the times to come. Moreover guys, other nitty-gritties are also there. For example, 39 new departments will be formed for health and irrigation and all these kind of things. But this is something which is more important. So that's it, and now we'll take to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about the foreign policy of India with respect to the China. Now, first of all, into our GS paper number 2, IR has been given, and under IR, that evolution of foreign policy is an important thing. Now see, if we talk about some background, then international relations are a very important aspect of the state's affairs. Clear? Kautilya had said into his Earth Shastra, into the Saptanga theory of state, that state have 7 elements, and out of these 7 elements, the ally or the mitra or the friend is one very important ally. And who will be the ally of a state? Another state. Therefore, international relation is a very important part into the statecraft. And now guys, with the direction of international relation is very dynamic. Okay, they are not always static. With the changing circumstances, they change. And the policy that we are adopting right now with respect to the international relation, such policy is called as the foreign policy of a particular country. So IR are forged under the impression of a prevalent foreign policy. Now, who dictates the foreign policy? It is dictated by broadly by the government of the day, their ideologies, their outlook. Moreover, it is even more conditioned by the prevalent strategic as well as geo-economic conditions. So, lot of factors are there. Fine. Now, guys, as we had seen that right now the geostrategic conditions, geo-economic conditions and leadership, everything has underwent a sea change, and a kind of a change in foreign policy therefore will also come. Right now, the Foreign Minister of India, S. Jaishankar, he had talked extensively onto the foreign policy. Before this particular direction, he had also talked about the strategic autonomy. If you are following regularly our newspaper, we have also discussed this into the article. This particular thing was said when the Quad exercise was into the news, when the militarization of Quad was being stressed, when it was being said that into the Malabar, the Australia will also be given the entry. He said that we as a country, India, follows the strategic autonomy. What is the strategic autonomy? It means that we have a power that we will pursue our own national interest, but at the same time we are not aligned. It was being alleged that India is making a kind of a military grouping into the Asia such as NATO. So he clarified that no, we are not making any grouping, we are autonomous, but whenever our interests are needed to be conserved, we will choose our sides very wisely. So this is a term you can use it into your answers. Then, now guys, with respect to the China, a new dimension of foreign policy has been said. It has been said that our policy with respect to China is now guided by realism. Now, what is this realism? So, realism as a political ideology or as a kind of a viewpoint in international relation means that countries have conflict as well as a competition between them, and such conflict and competition needs to be recognized, and keeping it in mind, the national priorities, international relations are to be set forward. Now guys, when we talk about idealism, it is said that Jawaharlal Nehru, was a firm believer in idealism with respect to the China's relations. He never saw a kind of a conflict or a kind of a competition, and taking its advantage, China even backstabbed in 1962 war. So guys, now it has been said that realism needs to be considered. Why such conflict and cooperation? Because we can see that China had many a times blocked India. For example, at the nuclear supplier groups, when India was being admitted, at that particular time China blocked India's entry, and now even China is siding with Pakistan, is becoming very vocal onto the Jammu and Kashmir. And what China's stand will be when India will be contesting for the permanent seat into the UNSC, that particular thing might also be seen as a competition. So therefore all these things are needed to be understood. So guys, this is a new dimension, and right now for India, a kind of an infinite search for equilibrium is a very big challenge. Why such infinite search is coming there? Because side by side there are two countries. One is India, which has which is having huge ambitions, and at the same time there is China, who is rising very aggressively. So into the same geographical land piece, accommodating two rising powers is a kind of an infinite search for equilibrium. Please use this terminology into your answers. Moreover guys, it has also been said that post 2009 China's attitude has changed considerably. Why? Because in 2009 a large number of events occurred. That was the time when a kind of a recession was going into the world economies, and this was the time. Till then the China has also matured enough of its manufacturing capabilities and all that thing, and after that 2009 there was also the coming of the Xi Jinping, and after coming of Xi Jinping in 2012 a new kind of China has emerged. So all these things are needed to be kept in mind with respect to the China. So guys, all these things have been said. Moreover, it has also been said that now even China is shifting the course of a boundary dispute onto the eastern sector. Earlier, more of its disputes were on western sector, and such a policy resembles to the policy of Zhou Enlai and Deng Xiaoping. So all these things are to be factored. So guys, into your answers, please try to provide these particular dimensions. So that's it. And now we'll take the next article. Now guys, we are into the editorial page, and this particular article talks about the recent issue that is going into the West Asia. Now what has happened? Israel has made a strike onto the Hezbollah. Now this is something which is beyond a just kind of an attack onto some kind of militia. It has bigger implications. What are they? Now, before going into this particular article, I will give you some background information so you are ready to absorb all these things which will be coming. First of all, friends, into the West Asia, Israel is always considered as an outsider. In 1948, Israel was made as a Jew state, and since then, the entire Arab region is not very happy. They had considered that the Jews will actually be a danger to the Muslim domination into the region. Moreover, as Israel was established onto the claimed Palestine region, and Palestine belonging to the Arabs, it has been said that even they had captured illegally their land also. This is a belief which is going on, and because of such a belief, if we see, till today, only three Arab countries have recognized the Israel, that is the Egypt, Jordan, and UAE. And UAE had just joined the league. We had covered this into the earlier articles also when a new deal was signed between Israel and UAE. And if we talk about the Gulf, only one country, that is UAE, has made the diplomatic relations with the Israel. So Israel is not liked by the nearby countries. And into this particular grouping, Iran is the most vehement of the Israel, and one of the plank of Iran is to dissolve the Israel. They are so much critical of them. This is the question number one. Iran is not happy particularly. Please keep in mind. Now guys, here if you'll see onto the map, here you can see that there is Israel. Then on towards the north side of Israel, you can here also find the Lebanon. So what happened in 1982? Israel invaded the Lebanon. Why? Because in Lebanon there was the South Lebanon Army or the Free Lebanon Army. This particular fraction, it was headed by the Christian militia, and Israel. Being Jews, they supported the Christians out of a common fraternity or a common brotherhood. Just there was it, they did that particular thing, and this thing was not even more liked by the countries into the neighborhood as well as by the Lebanon. It was considered that they are interfering into their own matters. Now, seeing this particular thing, what happened? Iran tried thought that we should also interfere into this particular matter, and at this particular time they raised a new militia, that is the Hezbollah. Iran gave their support, and this militia was raised into the Lebanon. Now their objective was to overthrow the Israel which is interfering into the Lebanon. Is it clear? Now what happened? A kind of a negotiations, kind of attacks, counter attacks, they started. And 1980, from 1985, from 1982 to 1985, the Israelis, they started to evacuate from the region. However, they didn't vacated one particular land slip on a strip onto the bordering region, and this land strip was called as the South Lebanon Security Belt. Okay, now this security belt, why it was not vacated? Because it was kept as a buffer zone between the Lebanon and between the Israel. Is it clear? So guys, this was the time that 1985 Hezbollah was formed, and now it was fighting with the Israel because of this particular belt. However, finally in 2000, the Israel withdrew from the South Lebanon security belt. However, the problems between the Israel and Hezbollah were not completely resolved, and eventually in 2006, again the Israel and Hezbollah war occurred, and with the intervention of the UN, this particular war was pacified. And from 2006 to 2020, 14 years of ceasefire was maintained between the Hezbollah and Israel. Is it clear? Now coming to the present time, what has happened now? So now the Israel has made a strike onto the Hezbollah into towards the Lebanon. There is a building on which they had made a strike and had said that it was being used by the Hezbollah members to keep a kind of a vigilance onto the Israel. Now this particular thing is very disturbing. Why? Because there is some background things which happened into very recent times. Now Israel is thinking that Iran is again supporting the Hezbollah. How it is supporting? So if you'll see the map, then you can see that here is Syria. Okay, now Iran through the Syria is sending the weaponry into the Lebanon so that Hezbollah can gain the strength. So Israel says that Iran is supplying weapons to the Hezbollah and giving them the strength so that into the times to come they can neutralize the Israel. So it is a kind of a preemptive step that has been taken by the Israel. Moreover, if we'll see the bigger picture, not only the Hezbollah is a matter of concern for the Israel, but Israel is now identifying that a kind of a triad is being formed into the region. On one side there is Hezbollah, on other side there is Syria, Now, Bashar al-Assad, the a kind of a dictator who was ruling the Syria, now he is more powerful, and he was given a kind of a tacit support or an indirect support by the Iran during the civil war. So now the Syria will be helping the Iran. Now Iran, Syria and Hezbollah, a triangle has been made and they can give an offensive to the Israel. So Israel is taking all these kind of steps. Now guys, after 14 years, again a kind of a new series of confrontations can start into the West Asia, and it will not be good for the regional prosperity and regional stability. Moreover, as rich oil reserves are located into this particular region, any crisis on this particular front can impact India's energy security. Moreover, if the conflict will intensify, India had to take some of the steps, then it can lead to a dilemma for India. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about keeping the record for our demography, that is for our population. Now guys, see what happens. It has been said that an adequate and robust data is very good for the governance, is good for effective governance as well as for the timely governance. Moreover, if data is there, evidence based decision making or evidence based policy making can be made, and ultimately the citizens will have the welfare. Now, as we are talking about the data, what is the major source of demographic data for the government? The major source is the census, and this census happens in every 10 years. But the thing is that such a long duration into the demographic data is not desired. So article says that timely collection of such data should be there, and the area for which the information is being collected for the census is not exhaustive. Very less number of items are there, and basically the number of items also needed to be expanded. Now here it has been said that the more frequent data, if it will be collected, then it will bring benefits for the individual, for the society, and as a result for the nation as a whole. Now what kind of data should be collected then? So it has been said that data with respect to the birth, at the birth weight needs to be collected. What was the weight of the child at the time of his birth? Then weight vis-a-vis height when a child is entering into the school, that particular needs to be seen. Then age to weight to height needs to be seen for the women who are becoming the first time pregnant. Then it has been said that other data for the women, particularly girls, such as the anemia, etc., also needs to be taken care of. Now, it has been shown that every data will lead large number of benefits. For example, by having all such kind of data, we can tell that what is the human capital that India will be enjoying into the future, because human capital is the productive labor force. Therefore we can tell that what will be the growth trajectory of India into the times to come. Now guys, if we talk step by step, then what happens? The pregnancy data also needs to be collected. Now there is a difference between the pregnancies and the birth. If there are 100 pregnancies, there might not be 100 births. Between them, there will be the stillbirths also. This particular thing needs to be captured, so that by seeing this particular thing, we can give response for the interventions during the time of the pregnancy. Now guys, even till today, the stillbirths, that is the babies who are born, they were dead, it is not noted. Clear? So that particular thing should be given focus. Many a time they are categorized as a neonatal death, but a neonatal death and the still deaths are different. After that guys, it has been said that birth to weight ratio of the children should be noted. It can give us many benefits. For example, it can tell that what is the status of the family. Okay, because if the weight is very much less, it would have been caused due to the less intake of the nutritious diet, and therefore the status of the family might not be that much good. It can tell much about the mother's health, because the primary way by which a child will receive the nutrition is via the mother. It also, if we collect all such information onto the district level, it can give us that give us a kind of an idea about entire districts food security situation, status of women into the district. The entire socio-economic standards of the district can be effectively gauged by such kind of data. Further, guys, it has been said that with respect to the children, the data such as height to weight proportion at the time when they are going into the school, that needs to be taken. Why? It will tell us the multidimensional poverty that is existing into the society, because if there is a mismatch with respect to the height is to weight, then primarily it is due to the care which has not been given to the child into his initial forming years. Now, it has been said that such kind of data should not only be collected, rather it needs to be analyzed at the highest political level. Why, friends? Because if here I quote the 2015-16 economic survey, there are specific chapter was there which had said that today's children are tomorrow's labor force. And into the formative initial years, if they will not be given good nutrition, their cognitive skills, their physical skills will be very much restricted. They will be crippled, and they will then not be able to serve the country into a more productive kind of way. So by such kind of data, timely interventions, timely steps can be taken. Moreover, guys, it has been said that with respect to the learning data also, much more work has to be done. For example, right now what happens, there are large number of cognitively ill students who are reading into the class, and onto the same test everybody is being tested, even a cognitively ill student and even a kind of a student, a regular normal student. But it is a kind of a wastage of effort. It has been said that by such kind of test, if if the students who are cognitively ill, they should be given some different kind of education. Otherwise, all the effort which has been given in education is not it will not be giving us any benefit. Then the data with respect to the school living needs to be analyzed at the highest level, and in seeing the school living data, we need to provide much needed interventions. For example, the cleaning of the toilet, sanitary pad, these are the reasons by which the children are leaving the schools. So high dropout rate means that these are some 50-100 schools which needs the urgent interventions, and on that particular basis steps could be taken. So guys, it has been said that multiple authorities from all the walks of governance should be brought together, and collectively they should work to collect the robust data and how to use that data in actual governance. So all this thing has been said into this particular article. So guys, this is the relevant information. That's it. Now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article is a very good reference which you can quote into the answers on GS paper number 3, environment and ecology. Now guys, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he had said that India is still not performing very good onto the lines of renewable energy and renewable energy conservation. It has been said that still we are promoting the coal. 7 times more subsidy on coal is given than onto the renewable energy. So therefore much more is needed to be done by the India. Then guys, even not only India specific observation has been made, but observation with respect to the entire G20 countries has been made. It has been said that G20 countries bought a recovery package where all the countries are giving a kind of a fiscal stimulus to their countries. But into such fiscal stimulus, reliance is only onto the conventional sources of energy, that is the fossil fuels. No focus or very less focus onto the renewable energies. What they are doing? They are opening up the coal auctions. They are giving more allocations of the coal. Even in India, if you remember, just a few days back, 41 new coal blocks have been identified for and they will be allocated for the mining, and this is being done at the point when the existing coal blocks have not been fully utilized. And not only the coal blocks have been given the permission, they have even been given permission into the no-go zones. So these are the problems with respect to the ecological conservation. You can quote the UN Secretary General into your answers. So that's it, friends. Now we'll move to the next article. Now Guys, this particular article is a kind of basically is a kind of a farewell message that has been written, as the Shinzo Abe, the Japanese prime minister, has declared that he will be taking a kind of retirement from the politics due to the bad health. Now, specifically, his political viewpoints and a large number of things might not be that much relevant for our UPSC exam, but into this particular article, various good keywords have been used which we can utilize whenever we are writing a question onto the international relation with respect to the Indo-Pacific region. Moreover, guys, we'll see important things in this particular regard. First of all, when we talk about Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he is the longest serving Prime Minister of Japan. First time he came for the period 2006 to 7, and now since 2012 he is serving the Prime Ministership in Japan. Now guys, he was the one who gave the currency to the idea of Indo-Pacific convergence. He gave a kind of a term, that is, there needs to be the dynamic coupling of seas of prosperity and freedom. So seas of prosperity and freedom, which sees the Pacific on one hand, Pacific, and on one hand the Indian Ocean. So we need to converge. Why? Because they are the prosperity and freedom lanes. You know that majority of cargo transit, more than 70%, 70 to 80% of cargo transit goes via this particular route. So here the convergence is very much essential. Moreover, he also popularized the kind of a convergence point between the democracies and gave currency to the term, that is the like-minded democracies, and this particular kind of slang has been used for countries such as the USA, India, Australia, and South Korea. Fine. So these are certain of the contributions that he had worked onto this particular line. He even gave much kind of support for the idea of the Quad. So in Quad there are 4 countries, that is the Australia, India, USA, and Japan. So he was instrumental at that point also. Fine guys. Now there is one point where he was not that much successful, that is in changing the article number 9 of the constitution. So if I tell you, the Japan is having a pacifist constitution. Pacifist constitution, what it means? When the World War II happened, after that a huge limitation on Japan was levied, that they can't have a fully functional military. So when Shinzo Abe came to the power, he said that he will change such a pacifist constitution and will give all the military powers which has been stripped from the Japan after World War II. But that particular thing has not been completely done. However, he proved the military kind of capabilities of Japan very many times onto the international stage. So guys, this particular thing is important, and a large number of terminologies which have been used you can utilize into your answers. Moreover, it also gives a sketch, because with Japan we have a very meaningful and deep relations in terms of technology transfers. Is it clear guys? So that's it, and now we'll move to the next article. Now, this is a factual kind of news, particularly for the prelims. Moreover, you can also utilize it into the answers of GS paper number 3, ecological conservation. See, what happens? Many a times there are large number of predators into a particular region. Clear? If you can recall, there was an incident into the South India, Kerala, where an elephant died because she consumed the pineapples which were laced with the which were laced with the poison. Clear? Now, if you see into the backstory, why such incident occurred? Because the farmers into that region, they were frustrated by the vermins, by the wild boars which were there, and to kill them, that particular thing was done. But it turned kind of fatal for the elephants. In Lakshadweep, there is a problem of the rats. These rats, they have destroyed the plantations for the coconut, and to kill them, the biological predators or the biological controls have been utilized, that is the barn owls. So these owls, they will kill they will eat these rats, and this will be a kind of a biological control. So as a reference we can give the example. Now, if we talk specifically about the barn owls, they are the least concerned into the IUCN Red List, and in fact, they are the most common category of owls into the world. Is it clear? So, guys, that's it for prelims as well as for mains. You can utilize it. So, guys, that's all for today, and now we'll move to the question section. Friends, please pause the video and try to answer the question. Question number 1 is with respect to the FRBM Act. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 2 is with respect to the article number 341. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 3 is with respect to the PVTG tribes. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question 4 is with respect to the Forest Plus 2.0 program. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. And now the main question for today. Friends, this particular question it pertains to the GS paper number 2 and it is a 10 marker question. The question says, what do you understand by quota in quota and how judiciary has responded to such an idea? Do you find it justified in the light of affirmative actions? Please write it and try to provide some innovative dimensions. So that's it, friends. I hope you are liking our discussion. Thank you so much.